So I'm going to introduce the venue or the location of where I'm taking these videos. I live at this lovingly called homestead in inner northeast Portland, and we're on 19th and Going Street, and we have 7 of us human housemates, and we cohabit with 1 cat, 5 hens, and 2 goats. They're dairy goats. We have a dairy goat cooperative that takes place in the neighboring lot, which I'm gonna give you a little look at. That's our garden, and back there in the far north corner is our little goat shed, where we have our 2 goats who are extremely pregnant right now, due next week, which is exciting. And this house is part of an informal co-housing initiative. There are about 4 or 5 houses that participate in dinners twice a week, Wednesday nights and Sunday nights, and we use that as a way of, you know, bringing our food costs down, because if you cook for about 15 people maximum, once in every 6 weeks or so, you can pretty much eat 2 meals a week for free, if that makes sense. It's not potluck. You cook for the community, you spend the money, and then you get to show up subsequently and eat for free. Beyond that, obvious logistical benefit, you get to meet your neighbors. There are all kinds of different age groups. We have some kids in the community. We have a couple of folks who are above 60, so it's not like the 7 of us in the house range from 30 to about 40 years old, so there's some age diversity that we get exposed to, and it's just lovely to be around people in a wider community. And I've lived here for 2 years now, and 2015, we implemented a village building convergence project, the flagship intersection repair project. Actually, it's at a mid-block, which is a slight amendment of our intersection repair ordinance. And I'm actually going to walk over with you right now. And it was a lot of fun. You know, I come to this movement more from natural building. And here's the cat. Oh. So let me just take you down. So I come at it from a natural building and permaculture perspective, not so much into public art. Here's another interesting feature, which is our little free box. So let's see, nobody on the streets. That's the mid block. We collaborated on the design. There's an intersection repair like 2 blocks down over there. And here's some parking strip innovations. There was a bunch of water gathering up here that we wanted to get off the sidewalk, so we dug this out, dug a real deep trench over here, and then all the water's soaking in there, and we got to plant pollinator habitat as well. And yeah, I'm gonna continue walking. So here's our signage for the goats. I kind of want to show you because they're so cute. But yeah, just, you know, we rent over here. rent is kept super affordable by our activist landlady. Look at that. It's a double lot with urban agriculture in Portland. It's increasingly becoming a rarity, believe it or not. And then here they are, the lovely ladies. It's not that much space, but they are delightful to be around. We have 10 to 11 Goat Co-op members. And, I don't have the ability to own a house or move to the countryside. And I think that the more solutions like this one that we're able to find, like the the sweet spot between an activist landlord who creates power sharing mechanisms like a community house that can hold 7 humans, and then keeps the double lot for agricultural and just like beauty and connection purposes, and cares deeply about animals. And all of these things are possible even in a hyper urban situation. So often when we think about access to land in permaculture and land design, we're talking about really rural landscapes or some intentional community that's off somewhere, we've I often feel like we've given up on the city before we even began. And while there has been a lot of devastating change that I was telling you about, I do think that there are so many ways that we can be creative and retrofit the urban grid, and retrofit our lives to ensure that they are deep and meaningful and enriched by community in various ways. We don't have to adopt this lifestyle of capitalistic kind of modernity where you just go about life with the main goal of your wallet and economic gain, which in some cases, like, I'm not saying money is evil or not to be ignored completely, but I think everything in balance, right? And so there are so many potential ways to work with land, to tend land, even if you don't own it. And like painting the street is one of our most we're most well known for it, because it's a way of jump starting that village spirit where you feel like you want to come out and claim the commons. That's our gathering place. We had, when we painted it, we had dinner when the weather gets nice. We had our community dinner out on the street, and the little free box, we have our own like exchange going on, where I've seen people who are like obviously transient come and pick up stuff, and then I also see people who drive pretty fancy cars dropping off some pretty fancy stuff. So all kinds of people stop by and use what is technically the public right of way, which is the furnishing and frontage zones in city speak, but generally you're like just those portions off of the sidewalk that we, City Repair, we have worked with our city government to ensure that within a certain kind of constraint you can put in kiosks. We had a proclamation in 2015 that legalized placement of up to 4 kiosks of there's a particular size constraint, and reach out to me if you want this like the legal packet or like support in making this legal in your own city. But basically we can put in up to 4 of these kiosks on a block, so 1 per face of the block, so that way it gets 4. And there's no like dearth of uses. You could do a pantry, you could do a toy share. There's so many different ways that you can be using public space and revitalizing the commons, and I really can't emphasize the importance of commons culture enough. It's so problematic to accept that we live within these abstract property lines and that we own. I think to think that we own land is absolutely ridiculous. I can't remember who it was, but like to engender the spirit more, that you have it, you're borrowing the land from your ancestors and your descendants, and so you have a limited amount of time here, and how you're going to walk, and how you going to leave the world, or like a place, for somebody else to inhabit and thrive, right? And so there's a lot of these small yet profound ways that we can more fully inhabit our lives and bring the commons back to life in the city, which is something that we do at City Repair, and pretty effectively. So that's that for access to land in an urban sphere. And I'm gonna talk next about the about more of a lens with the indigenous food forest.